Why is it that we self-sabotage ourselves? In in all the videos I've posted, I'm basically logging how I want to become a filmmaker and I just want to make things even though I basically know nothing about the filmmaking scene and the community. And more recently, it's been so fun and so beautiful about the process of just learning constantly about, story structure, screenwriting, all that. But a problem that I've been facing is that I feel like I'm constantly self sabotaging myself in everything I do. For example, like I've been watching so many wonderful and talented creators just make things and create these wonderful short films that have won so many awards. And I've been using that subconsciously as a thing to scare myself away from, what I could be capable of. I see, oh, they won this award. Oh my gosh, they did this and it got them this opportunity. And I think that I kind of have to be weary about, you know, this self sabotage that I'm putting on myself where it's like I'm kind of disqualifying myself before even anyone else has a chance to disqualify me, which in itself is kind of stupid because when you're trying to do something, you shouldn't let anybody else try to determine what you are worthy of, And I think that if it was so easy, a lot of people would do it. I think that in the process of learning cinematography and all this, and in the future become a legit filmmaker, as I'm not already a legit filmmaker now. I'm a filmmaker because I say I'm a filmmaker, but I think that the overarching topic is that it has to come from us and not to us. So, in a sense, that when we realize that we're self sabotaging ourselves, we kind of have to realize, wow, I have to kind of tell myself, even though I'm scared to do this, even though I fear what other people are thinking, it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter because self sabotage is brewed in our own ideation and it can leave ourselves constantly worrying about something that might not even happen, And you hear so many great people, so many people who have made it, they say, oh, just pick up a camera, and it might be easier said than done, but at the same time, it's not. Like you can literally just start filming and making short films because my favorite directors like Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Kubrick, and more recently Curry Barker, they all had a similar thing in common, which was the action. They took the first steps that allowed opportunities to show up for them. For Curry Barker, he started a sketch YouTube channel which allowed him to promote his own horror short films and then get funding for Obsession and eventually selling it for like $10 million. Like if he hadn't taken action, those opportunities wouldn't have showed up for him and it wouldn't have happened at all. You know, I think that every great director, writer director had those thoughts. It's not like those thoughts never passed through them, but it never paralyzed them completely. And I think that's what self-sabotage does so often is that it paralyzes us so much that we aren't able to carry out our own dreams just because of what we might think or what others think about us. It's a defense mechanism. Literally, self-sabotage is just something that we can do to protect ourselves. And just because I've been living in fear doesn't mean that I'm not capable of making something that is, I guess, worthy to my expectations, and I'm basically making this for myself. The process of this more recently has been just something that I want to do just to create something so real and, something so much more than me. And I think that's what makes filmmaking so beautiful. And, that's the goal, anyways. So what I'm saying is that this video might flop and might never see the light of day, but right now I'm not ready to quit. The self-sabotage and the self-doubt, they can, go through me, but it's not like I can allow it to paralyze me just because this has been I feel so driven, I feel so alive doing this, and I think that is so beautiful in the process. Like there's this guy, Caleb Shaw, I think, and he made a similar video to this, and he's talking about how he wants to be a filmmaker and how, he wants to be a big time director. And even in his own video, he was noting that he's talking about being a director for 3 years, but he was saying that he wasn't actually being a director. Like he was talking about it, but he wasn't doing it. So I think that's why action is so important, just to literally just get your foot in the door and be able to kind of push through and be like, hey, I know I'm worried right now. I know I'm scared to do this, but at least I'm doing it. And I think it's so important, and it's something to keep in mind, just because, there's so many people out there there's so many people's dreams who will never come true just because they allowed self-doubt to creep into them. And that's why I'm making these videos, just to kind of nail the fact that I want this to come true, and it will come true as long as I stay dedicated to myself and I invest in myself. And I don't allow anybody around me to determine what I am capable of and what I'm not capable of. So that was the video.